This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For further information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Men of Yarnith from Time and the Gods by Lord Dunsany. The men of Yarnith hold that nothing began until Yarni Zai uplifted his hand. Yarni Zai, they say, has the form of a man, but is greater, and is a thing of rock. When he uplifted his hand, all the rocks that wandered beneath the dome, by which name they call the sky, gathered together around Yarni Zai. Of the other worlds they say naught, but hold that the stars are the eyes of all the other gods that look on Yarni Zai and laugh, for they are all greater than he, though they have gathered no worlds around them. Yet, though they be greater than Yarni Zai, and though they laugh at him when they speak together beneath the dome, they all speak of Yarni Zai. Unheard is the speaking of the gods to all except the gods, but the men of Yarnith tell of how their prophet Iraun, lying in the sand desert, Azrakhan, heard once their speaking, and knew thereby how Yarni Zai departed from all the other gods to clothe himself with rocks and to make a world. Certain it is that every legend tells that at the end of the valley of Yodeth, where it becomes lost among black cliffs, there sits a figure colossal against a mountain, whose form is the form of a man with the right hand uplifted, but vaster than the hills. And in the book of secret things which the prophets keep in the temple that stands in Yarnith is writ the story of the gathering of the world as Iraun heard it, when the gods spake together up in the stillness above Azrakhan. And all that read this may learn how Yarni Zai drew the mountains about him like a cloak, and piled the world below him. It is not set in writing for how many years Yarni Zai sat clothed with rocks at the end of the valley of Yodeth, while there was naught in all the world save rocks and Yarni Zai. But one day there came another god running over the rocks across the world, and he ran as the clouds run upon days of storm, and as he sped towards Yodeth, Yarni Zai, sitting against his mountain with right hand uplifted, cried out: "What dost thou, running across my world, and whither art thou going?" And the new god answered never a word, but sped onwards, and as he went to left of him and to right of him there sprang up green things all over the rocks of the world of Yarni Zai. So the new god ran round the world and made it green, sowing in the valley where Yarni Zai sat monstrous against his mountain, and certain lands wherein Cradoa, the drought, browsed horribly at night. Further, the writing in the book tells of how there came yet another god running speedily out of the east, as swiftly as the first, with his face set westward and naught to stay his running, and how he stretched both arms outward beside him, and to left of him and to right of him as he ran the whole world whitened. And Yarni Zai called out: "What dost thou, running across my world?" And the new god answered: "I bring the snow for all the world, whiteness and resting and stillness." And he stilled the running of streams and laid his hand even upon the head of Yarni Zai and muffled the noises of the world, till there was no sound in all lands but the running of the new god that brought the snow as he sped across the plains. But the two new gods chased each other for ever round the world, and every year they passed again, running down the valleys and up the hills and away across the plains before Yarni Zai, whose hand uplifted had gathered the world about him. And furthermore the very devout may read how all the animals came up the valley of Yodeth to the mountain whereon rested Yarni Zai, saying: "Give us leave to live, to be lions, rhinoceroses and rabbits, and to go about the world." And Yarni Zai gave leave to the animals to be lions, rhinoceroses and rabbits, and all the other kinds of beasts, and to go about the world. But when they all had gone he gave leave to the bird to be a bird and to go about the sky. And further there came a man into that valley who said: Yarni Zai, thou hast made animals into thy world. O Yarni Zai, ordain that there be men. So Yarni Zai made men. Then was there in the world Yarni Zai and the two strange gods that brought the greenness and the growing and the whiteness and the stillness, and animals and men. And the god of the greenness pursued the god of the whiteness, and the god of the whiteness pursued the god of the greenness, and men pursued animals, and animals pursued men. But Yarni Zai sat still against his mountain with his right hand uplifted. But the men of Yarnith say that when the arm of Yarni Zai shall cease to be uplifted, the world shall be flung behind him as a man's cloak is flung away, and Yarni Zai, no longer clad with the world, shall go back into the emptiness beneath the dome among the stars, as a diver seeking pearls goes down from the islands. It is writ in Yarnith's histories by scribes of old that there passed a year over the valley of Yarnith that bore not with it any rain, and the famine from the wastes beyond, finding that it was dry and pleasant in Yarnith, crept over the mountains and down their slopes and sunned himself at the edge of Yarnith's fields. And the men of Yarnith, labouring in the fields, found the famine as he nibbled at the corn and chased the cattle, and hastily they drew water from deep wells and cast it over the famine's dry grey fur, and drove him back to the mountains. But the next day, when his fur was dry again, the famine returned and nibbled more of the corn and chased the cattle further, and again men drove him back. But again the famine returned, and there came a time when there was no more water in the wells to frighten the famine with, and he nibbled the corn till all of it was gone, and the cattle that he chased grew very lean. And the famine drew nearer, even to the houses of men, and trampled on their gardens at night, and ever came creeping nearer to their doors. At last the cattle were able to run no more, and one by one the famine took them by their throats and dragged them down, and at night he scratched in the ground, killing even the roots of things, and came and peered in at the doorways, and started back and peered in at the door again a little further, but yet was not bold enough to enter altogether, for fear that men should have water to throw over his dry grey fur. Then did the men of Yarnith pray to Yarni Zai as he sat far off beyond the valley, praying to him night and day to call his famine back. But the famine sat and purred and slew all the cattle, and dared at last to take men for his food. And the histories tell how he slew children first, and afterwards grew bolder and tore down women, till at last he even sprang at the throats of men as they laboured in the fields. Then said the men of Yarnith: "There must go one to take our prayers to the feet of Yarni Zai, for the world at evening utters many prayers, and it may be that Yarni Zai, as he hears all earth lamenting when the prayers at evening flutter to his feet, may have missed among so many the prayers of the men of Yarnith. But if one go and say to Yarni Zai, there is a little crease in the outer skirts of thy cloak that men call the valley of Yarnith, where the famine is a greater lord than Yarni Zai, it may be that he shall remember for an instant and call his famine back." Yet all men feared to go, seeing that they were but men, and Yarni Zai was lord of the whole earth, and the journey was far and rocky. But that night Hothrun Dath heard the famine whining outside his house and pawing at his door. Therefore it seemed to him more meet to wither before the glance of Yarni Zai than that the whining of that famine should ever again fall upon his ears. So about the dawn Hothrun Dath crept away, fearing still to hear behind him the breathing of the famine, and set out upon his journey whither pointed the graves of men. For men in Yarnith are buried with their feet and faces turned towards Yarni Zai, lest he might beckon.